You're listening to the Marne Report.
Hi, Fort Stewart and Hunter Army Airfield. Kelsey here, back with another edition of the Marne Report podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dan Walters from the Directorate of Plans, Training, Mobilization, and Security, and Jim Krupp from the Army Community Service. Today, we're going to talk all about Operation Security, or what's better known as OPSEC. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you.
How are you guys doing?
Doing great. It's Friday.
It is.
Nice weather, so
yeah.
Ready for the weekend.
So I know that May is OPSEC Awareness Month, but before we get into anything like that, do you guys want to just introduce yourselves and tell our audience about your role here on Fort Stewart?
Sure. So I'm Dan Walters. I'm the installation OPSEC manager, wear a lot of different other hats, but that's what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely. And as you said, I'm Jim Krupp. I work with Army Community Service, and my specific role there is a ACS Specialist Manager. So we have a lot of programs in ACS, and I manage about 5 of them. And then one of my additional duties is as the Directorate OPSEC Officer for ACS.
Perfect. So you guys have a lot of knowledge about today's current topic. For those who don't know, basic question, what is OPSEC?
Well, I'll tell you. Simply put, OPSEC is a process that identifies and protects unclassified critical information indicators that are related and associated with friendly force actions. So what our adversaries are really good at is taking bits and pieces of information and then putting them together and learning about our operations in that way. And so that's essentially what it does. It's protecting unclassified information.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Anything to add? Or?
Yeah, I mean, Dan hit the nail on the head. When we think OPSEC, think about all the things we do at Fort Stewart or any other installation that has to do with an operation, either something that's getting planned, something we're currently doing, or something that's been completed. We let our adversaries get that information. We're potentially putting people in harm's way and in danger. And then there's a little bit more that we're going to talk about what we can do down at our individual levels to help improve OPSEC.
And you mentioned keeping people safe, keeping our soldiers and troops safe. Is there other reasons why OPSEC is important, or is that the main one?
Well, when you talk about Third ID, you know the Army looks at this division as one of its premier power projection platforms. And when you consider the seriousness of that mission, one of the things that you also then have to take serious is OPSEC. And so I have 2 main things that I'll get into that are my concern from the headquarters garrison standpoint.
Yeah, and then the other thing, it has to do with what, like I said before, what we do at our individual level, and not only just the operational stuff that we do, but how that can impact when we put things on social media and we're communicating, within our networks, how that information can also impact your personal data, which is a big thing too. So it kind of goes hand in hand with OPSEC, and if we're putting our information out, the adversaries can get that, but we also let other people aware of what's going on, and we don't want to put ourselves or our families at risk either.
What are the most common mistakes you guys see with OPSEC?
I can tell you from the garrison perspective, we do these inspections of the directorates randomly. And honestly, one of the most, a couple of the most common mistakes are folks leaving their CAT cards in their machines. I bet yours is probably in there.
No.
So we have CUI material in trash containers and not shredded. That's the 2 really big ones that are just reoccurring all the time. I mean, just about every time I do an inspection, that's what I find.
I will say you should be proud. Almost anything I throw away actually just goes in the shred bin, even if I'm like,
nice.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm just like, I'll shred it.
Nice. Very good.
Well, and one of the things, as Dan mentioned, when he comes down to the directorate, so he'll come to like ACS, for instance, in the building where I work, in Building 87, we have a community computer lab. And so soldiers are routinely printing things, whether it be an LES or their orders or medical documentation, and they'll print that out on the printer. And sometimes we'll walk away, maybe it got caught in the print queue, and then they leave, and then later it spits it out, and then that thing's sitting on a table or on a printer for anybody else to pick up. Now, we go through every day. Part of our OPSEC inspection is to make sure that there isn't any documents laying around, and then we shred it. But that's just something I see commonly almost every single day. And then, as Dan said, people will leave their CAT cards in that community computer lab computer and leave. Well, good thing is I'm right there. I'll pick it up, or one of the staff will pick it up, and we'll keep it up at the front desk. But that's not going to happen everywhere you go. So that's a common thing that we see.
A community computer lab?
Yes.
Wow.
Building 87.
Yikes, I would definitely not leave my CAC there. That would go everywhere with me in that place. Are there do you have something to add?
Well, I just have an exciting announcement.
Okay.
People probably don't know that May is OPSEC Awareness Month.
Right.
Isn't that just intriguing?
It is.
So we don't have a theme this year, but Headquarters MCOM did put out 4 bullets that they wanted us to focus on for each week in the month of May. Is it all right if I go over them?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So this week, they want to focus on social media.
I would say week 1. Just for the podcast. Yeah.
Okay. For week 1, they want us to focus on social media, probably the most prevalent and ongoing concern, particularly when you talk about all of the deployments that Third ID does going downrange and people moving TDY and all this kind of stuff. Social media is just so major. So we like to talk to families at the fairs, deployment fairs, and we like to put the message out there about how important it is to restrict the information that gets put on social media. So that's week 1. Week 2 is the counter small UAS area of focus, and this threat really spans several protection pillars. It crosses into anti-terrorism, law enforcement, but certainly from a surveillance standpoint, also OPSEC. And we did an exercise just last week or a week before where we had a real live UAS fly up just on the outside of the perimeter of the installation, but it was looking inward at our actions. So that's something that we need to be aware of. And third week is insider threat. This can be the most damaging of all. And I just want to remind the listeners, when they see something, say something. And then the fourth week has everything to do with the protecting your critical asset list and your critical information list. And in that regard, the garrison has a new OPSEC or SOP that we'd be happy to forward to anybody who needs a good example.
I like it. Yeah. No, those are good themes and good reminders to people. I feel like it breaks down different aspects into easy bites to what to focus on, which leads me, are there any simple tips to make sure that people are compliant? Like just your everyday reminder that you would like to tell people?
Really, when it comes to social media, and I'll just mirror what Dan said, when we do these deployment fairs, which is one of my major responsibilities, we're constantly driving that message home. The commands are talking about that. But even with that, the thing that people can do on a daily basis if they want to help and be a little bit more cognizant and aware of OPSEC is just stop posting things on social media. I know it's not always easy, it's what we do, but kind of put yourself in a situation, step back and go, if I put this on social media, you're not just sharing it with a couple people or your network, you're pretty much sharing it with everybody because somebody's going to get that on social media. So just be aware of what you're putting, and if you think it could cause somebody some harm or put somebody in danger or compromise the mission, just don't do that. That's real simple.
What are those big things we keep saying when it comes to deployment? What are those big things just to remind people exactly what they should not be posting?
So they shouldn't be posting like specifics like the unit size or how many people are deploying or the number of aircraft, maybe like down in the cab, we're going to deploy X number of air. That's giving our adversaries, a strength numbers. We don't want to do that. Not specific dates, like we're going to arrive at this time and we're going to depart at this time, or flight manifests. And those are things we absolutely don't want to put out.
And that's just as easy as a spouse being like, so-and-so deploys on this day.
That's right.
Send prayers.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And it's so simple. That's exactly right. Yeah. People do that and they don't think about it. but you got to put yourself in that mindset, especially with what we do every day, being in the military, working on an installation with real world missions. You do have to think like that. And when you're a civilian, maybe you don't, but we do. And in that military life, what we do every day, you do have to have a little bit more sense of awareness about what you're saying to the community.
Are there any misconceptions that people have about OPSEC?
I think the greatest misconception is that, it's unclassified information. It's all over the internet. I see it on social media. I can talk about it. I was talking to somebody about it in a food court at the PX. Even if you may have heard it or seen it someplace, it's just not a good thing to be talking about anything that has to do with third ID mission or missions involving protection.
Yeah, I worked in the Pentagon, and that was one of the biggest things is that outside secondhand jabber. You don't never know who's listening. And I feel like even people are like, oh, but that's the Pentagon. That can never happen here in Fort Stewart. But you never know. So that's a really good point.
Well, and, Dan and I are probably old enough to remember back in the day when they used to do these OPSEC commercials in the Army over in AFN, over in Germany, and it was people sitting in the food court or the pizzeria, and they're talking about, a field problem they're getting ready to go on, and there's some guy in a trench coat and a hat. Right? But we're kind of coming back full circle to that. We get it off of social media, but Dan's exactly right. People think, okay, I'm not putting it on social media. That's a misconception. So therefore, if I talk about it, it's okay. Still not okay. It's still going to get compromised. And you just, again, when we're talking about third ID stuff, you just want to be careful about that. Just want to kind of keep it to yourself and not put it out in a public forum. And that misconception you have, a lot of people think, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me because I'm not in the military. Or we're not really deployed. It's just a field problem. Even those are things we don't want to know. Don't want other people to know. So that's a misconception. Everything applies to everybody. And as Dan said, it could potentially save your life. Just the little things can sometimes compromise safety, and we don't want to do that.
Thank you guys so much. Is there anything else you guys would like to share with our audience?
Dan,
That's
I think
right.
you were going to
Absolutely.
throw some.
So, may I close with so the one point I want to really stress with the listeners is that OPSEC can save your life. Anybody's life, and it might even save yours. So please think about it. We're going to get the word out in some more campaign media efforts, and we're so grateful for this opportunity to sit in front of you and talk about OPSEC.
No, I just, again, appreciate the opportunity to get the message out to the community, to what we do. It's something we have some passion for. We have a unique perspective, both being in the military now, working with the military. Just, really want everybody to think about that, take this month and kind of get that in your heads and try to carry that over throughout the year. But again, we really appreciate having the opportunity to be here.
I appreciate you guys joining me. I know I learned a lot, and I hope our audience did too. To stay up to date on Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield activities, please follow us on social media and download the My Army Post app. Thank you all. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm Kelsey Stieber, and that concludes this episode of the Marne Report. See you next week.
The My Army Post app is your one-stop source for all things Fort Stewart Hunter Army Airfield. With map at your fingertips, you'll never miss out on upcoming events, installation updates, facility and gate information, weather, shopping, and so much more. My Army Post is free from your phone's app store. Download today.